Care, episode 217 of the BTS Creative Academy podcast, Uncut. Introducing Rhiannon Faith, with me, your host, Martin Colton. So, I don't know, so I was speaking with Anna.
Yeah, Anna is the producer at Rhiannon Faith Company. Yeah.
So speaking briefly with her. So this is a podcast where I talk to creative people. I discuss what they're doing at the moment. We just have a conversation. It's not necessarily like an interview.
Nice.
And we talk about what you're doing at the moment and what you hope to do in the future. And it's relaxed. It can last 10 minutes, or if we can do an hour, we'll do an hour. We'll see where it goes.
Lovely. Okay, I'm glad that we finally got scheduled together, because I know that we were trying to sort something out while we were at the Playhouse, but I'm sorry that didn't work out.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. Sometimes timing's difficult with these things, isn't it? So no, we're here now. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
That's it.
And how are you? Are you all right?
Yeah, doing good. Really busy with the podcast. The podcast, I've been doing this for the last year now.
Okay.
So it's starting to build, and it's starting to get some listeners and some followers. So yeah, in a really good place.
And is it a weekly podcast or is it a monthly podcast? How does it work?
Yeah, so I put 2 episodes out a week. I put 2 uncut episodes. I put out on a Monday and a Thursday, and then there's clips going out every day. And I've been at a film festival recently where I did 17 podcasts in 3 days, and yeah, that was quite intense. So for a little while I had content going out every single day.
Yeah. Oh, great! So it's full-time.
Yes.
Creative podcast capturing all different types of arts.
Exactly, that's it, exactly. And it's I never quite, when I started this a year ago, I never expected it to take me on this journey and to become a full-time thing, but I'm absolutely loving it and enjoying it, and like I say, it's building, and I can see it going in a positive direction.
Yeah, brilliant. Well done.
Thank you. It's nice to hear well done every now and then, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It takes a lot to get creative ideas off the ground, and the pace is always different and it's always changing, isn't it? So it's one of those things that if you have an idea and a vision, that you have to stick out for a while to see, how that lands for you. And
yeah, and I've struggled with that my creative life. I've wanted to be an actor, a theatre director, producer, and I've been doing acting mainly for the past 20 years, and I've really struggled to. I had a vision and I knew what I wanted to do, but I could never make these things almost come true. I was always hitting my head against a brick wall where I had to ask permission from others, where I had to say to people, "Can I be part of your thing?" Audition.
Yeah.
And
your own thing.
But now I've got my own thing, and no one can stop me.
And actually, all of the skills that you need from all of the work that's come previous.
Yes.
Do this.
Exactly, and I've learned a lot of new skills, and I'm learning things every day, which is such a blessing. Every time I get to sit with someone and have a conversation, I'm learning new things.
Yeah.
So we need to find out what I could learn from you today, Rhiannon. We've got some. I think we've got some mutual friends. I've heard a lot about you in the town. I've heard a lot of the things that you do are very positive, and so I was very keen to get to know you, to find out what's happening with the Rhiannon Faith Company.
Yeah, I guess. You want me to tell you?
Yeah, I'd love to know. Yes.
Okay. Well, we're very busy at the moment, which is why our schedules are really tricky, because we're gearing up for the Care Weekender, which is outside Playhouse, at the Harlow Playhouse, so Playhouse Square. The Care Weekender kind of grew out of a vision a couple of years ago, which was the Care House Project. where we wanted to do some kind of hyper local creative work that would have a bit of a life rather than just, a small project
Mm-hmm.
that, you do a small project, you have that wonderful experience, and then, you move on to the next project. So we wanted to create something that felt a little bit more sustainable, and therefore beneficial for the people that committed to that project.
Mm-hmm.
And the project I was delivering, I think it was 6 workshops over the summer in 2022. And the invitation, or the call out, was to do with care. So if you want to talk about care, or you've experienced care in your life, or you have a lack of care in your life, then we're going to be holding these kind of weekly workshops. It will be me running some kind of creative and movementy tasks, although I always hold off saying the movementy bit.
Why?
Sometimes put people off.
Why do you think that puts some people off of getting involved the movement side of it?
Um, I think because it's a scary prospect. When you're walking into a workshop about care,
Mm-hmm.
I guess you're arriving with some vulnerability anyway. And people are quite comfortable at writing their thoughts or their feelings down, but trying to translate that into movement is perhaps an extra ask.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, when they're in the space and we're doing it together, it's very natural,
Yeah.
and we build up to it quite slowly, um, by invitations to take part in kind of visual kind of ideas that bring movement into the space. And yeah, it becomes kind of like part of the language, part of the vocabulary of what we're talking about, to do with care. We do a bit of writing, a bit of movement, and then by the end of it, they're all dancers. So it's
What?
great in that respect.
Why create a piece of theatre that has something so important like care attached to it? Why not just get a group of people together and do a normal story? Why do something with a message?
Um, I guess it's more to do with a connecting theme, or a connecting point that everybody can tap into, because it's a human experience. So you're talking about something very universal, but also something very personal, because we all have our own experiences of what care means to us. Um, and so we can draw upon our own experiences, but what then unites us is, talking about that theme together. And
Mm-hmm.
it's quite accessible, to do that. We can either think about people in our life that we have cared for or care for us, or we can think about moments in our life where perhaps there felt a lack of care, or it felt that there was, I don't know, neglect or loneliness, and they're the things we that kind of get brought up together. And we work with a psychologist in the space, who kind of talks about self-care and the things that we need in our kind of daily lives to keep on top of the care for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of feeds into the creative tasks as well. Um, so it feels like a conversation that everyone can have, because it's just what we know. um, or we want to know, or we think we know perhaps, but actually when it comes to self-care, that's quite a big
Mm.
topic that we don't really maybe know that much about, because it's the thing we do the least, perhaps.
I feel like you're trying to do something bigger here than just put on a show. I feel like you're trying to get to a place of build a community, and within that community give them something for their own lives within the people that are involved in that show, and something that they can take away from this, rather
Yeah,
than, you mentioned earlier that this isn't a just a piece, a standalone piece of theatre, that this is something that keeps moving after the show.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. That's the intention, is to do something that that feels, you know, as if the community that is built, because that is what naturally happens when you start to talk about these things with people. When you start to open up, there is a sense of vulnerability, which also offers a sense of connection, and brings people closer together. And unfortunately, it is sometimes our suffering that brings us together. And community, actually, I think the Latin root of community is suffering together, which
really?
which is kind of like, yeah, when we build communities, it's because we don't want to stay at home by ourselves, because that's hard. We want to have connection. We want people to witness our lives and who we are, and we want to feel seen. And I think that is what's come up doing these workshops, that people feel invisible in their day-to-day lives. They don't feel like they have someone to see who they are, the gifts that they bring, and or maybe they don't even know where to start to even think about those things, but they're experiencing those things. So I think if you can bring art into somebody's life who can then access through the art a way of feeling part of something, like part of a group or part of a conversation, or build friendships, then that feels like a really important thing to do. And we're getting a lot of, at the moment, we're having participants being socially prescribed to the groups, to the workshops in particular. And they come from different service providers in Harlow, which in Harlow there's like magnificent amount of really brilliant community services that either provide care or act as signposts to direct someone to where they need to go to get the support they need. And I guess that's how the Care Festival was built. When we did the Care House project, I made a show with a group of participants, because at the end of the workshops, I kind of said, does anyone want to be in a show? And at that point, we'd just got some funding, so it kind of happened at the right time. And they all said yes. So I ended up actually making 9 shows, kind of the same show, but with 9 versions of it for each of the participants. And we performed that in the town park. But what was kind of holding that space were the other kind of service providers that came and put their stalls up and were able to be there to either lead workshops or act as a signpost to the work that they do. So there's a connection for me for people accessing culture, and at the same time having the opportunity to access a community. And if they're not accessing community, then offering support, like having those support services in front of them, that they can access them, which will hopefully lead them to community. And I guess in a way that's so that it's so they can continue to access art and culture as well. So they build this community, and now, so the community that we were working with for that first show, they're now not only coming, say, to the Barbican to come and watch the shows that as a company we create, but they're now the steering group for the festival weekender, the Care Weekender this year. So I don't have that much to do with what's going to happen on that weekend. Of course, that we're encouraging, with support from our producers and our creative team as to the things that we'd like to offer the wider community. But the participants from our first Care workshops are now in charge of the festival, pretty much.
Wonderful.
Offers a sense of growth. And also they come into the new workshops that we started this summer. So I've just finished 6 weeks of workshops that's kind of curated out of our experience of the last one. So we might have moved things around or changed them, or enhanced some of the creative tasks a little bit. But they're delivered by myself and one of my dancers from the company. But we also have peer mentors, and the peer mentors are the previous participants. So they're growing in their relationship to arts and culture, as well as their relationship to themselves and their own self-esteem and their own confidence in what they can, achieve by just having that experience and turning up in the first place. Um,
So
so
you've
yeah,
given these people empowerment, haven't you? You've given these people, you've shown them how powerful theatre can be for them. And then once they've discovered that for themselves, you've empowered them to help others to show more.
I mean, they have seen the courage in one another. That's what has empowered them.
Mm.
They put themselves in a real kind of vulnerable place and went, yeah, I'm going to do this show, and I don't know what Rhiannon's got planned for us. So
Yeah.
it was a co-creation. We created it together. They put all of their ideas. It was their story, their text that was, their voice recordings that were in the pieces, and their movement that they'd created themselves during the workshop, and were the starting points for the professional dancers that they worked with. So it was really theirs. I kind of facilitated it and refined it perhaps, and gave it a narrative so that for an audience it felt accessible. But their courage in saying, yeah, I'm going to try this, I've never done this before, is they saw that in one another. And that kind of was like, oh, well, you can do it, I'm going to do it. It kind of encouraged them to do it for themselves. That's why community is so important, because when people step up and, take the lead in some way, even if they're not, used to that, or that might be out of their comfort zone. If someone does it, there's growth within that community, and everybody kind of moves with them, and that's what is really exciting to see, and a privilege to be part of. Because they have become a family now. They care about one another, and I guess that's the point.
Yes, yeah. And there's great power in that vulnerability as well, isn't there? It takes a lot of vulnerability, to a lot of courage to get up on the stage and do a script that's been handed to you. As I know,
Yeah,
when I've been,
right.
yeah, but to tell your own story
Yeah, yeah.
and perform that, the vulnerability that you have to offer to that, I guess it's essential that the community comes together.
Yeah, and they had autonomy. Like it was up to them what they wanted to say and do, and they could hold back anything that they didn't want to, and it was a process for them in a way that was quite cathartic. Um, and they were held. Like the professional dancers that I work with are so experienced at working with participants, and they just, they became so involved themselves in the creativity of it,
Mm.
and the vision that, yeah, it just, I don't know, there's part, like, you think it's scary, but you're in it and you're doing it, and suddenly you're on stage and
Yes.
you've done that, and it kind of, you don't even notice really.
Mm.
I think during the workshops we offered so many tools, as did the counselor, to, when we get excited or when we get nervous, what emotions they are, and how we work with our emotions, and how we label them, and how we, are able to, um, once we've spoken about them, to put ourselves back on our factory settings, because we have the skills that we've learned during the workshop to do that. Then it's actually very available to anyone who wants to do that.
It
Yeah.
it sounds like to me you've got a really good understanding of how powerful theatre can be for people. how powerful theatre can help and enhance our lives. Where did this kind of concept, this idea of doing this show, where did that start for you? Where did that come from?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think that you get to a point where you want your work and your process to feel meaningful, and that you want to, learn and try new things, take your work in different directions so that you are creatively fulfilled. So I guess, working with participants happened a long time ago when we did our first piece of work with the Playhouse, and that was with Smack That Conversation, and that was with the local charity Safer Places and some wonderful women in Harlow that were part of that charity, and it was a charity that looked after and supported survivors of domestic abuse. And that was at the time, I guess, something in my life that I was thinking about and wanted to start a wider conversation about and raise awareness of. And so it all kind of happens naturally in that sense, that if there's something that I feel, that it's the right time to kind of talk about or address, or it feels like I have enough understanding or experience to go to topics that I think perhaps need a bit more visibility, then that's how an idea starts, really.
Mm-hmm.
I guess. And then if on the way we just kind of talk to people and see where the interest is and how we might do it. And with that show in particular, I needed to work with experts, and I needed to do a lot of training myself about it. And so it was via me going to training to kind of understand it all that led us to the participants that became part of that show. And then they came on a UK tour with us because that was what was right for that piece of work, because they had to tell their own stories. And every project changes really depending on what's at the heart of it. What do we want to open up? What feels important to talk about? And I guess after I'd made Drowntown, which didn't have any participants in, that was just the professional dance company. And we were making that show, but before making that show, we did so much research with people in local communities, especially on the coast, that were experiencing problem gambling and isolation and addiction. And we were working with a lot of charities around that, which fed into the work. And I guess there was a lot of stuff that came up making that show that couldn't really fit in that show, but had a kind of, we weren't finished with the research and the other stuff that, followed on. And I guess that was to do with, how society is broken and that people are left behind, and where's the care?
Mm-hmm.
And how do people live, day to day without feeling that they're valued or feeling that someone loves them? And I think, what did I start to do after that? We made the film Drowntown Lockdown. Oh yeah, that's right. We went into lockdown, so
So that stopped everything for a moment.
yeah,
Forced
it
you to
stopped
change your
everything.
plans and rethink a few things.
Yeah, we kind of, our live show couldn't tour, so we made a film called Drowntown Lockdown, kind of based on or a prelude to our live show. But that's when the idea for the show that's about to tour next year, Burdens, came up. Lay Down Your Burdens. That's a show about, the stuff that we carry. Because I was, in my house, kind of just looking out the window, thinking, oh, my neighbour over there, maybe he hasn't spoke to anyone today, and I wonder how he is, and he can't come out of his house. But what happens to all of the heavy stuff that we still have in our hearts, you know, or in our life experience? Where does that go if you don't have your mate to chat to about it, or you don't have someone to visit you that you might have? And it was that, you know, that question: how do we carry stuff by ourselves, or how do we carry stuff for each other? And that's all to do with care, really. And so when I was thinking about the community in Harlow and what we could look at for a group of participants that felt gentle enough to lead in a kind of workshop sense, but could potentially, you know, we could talk about in a show sense, then the subject of care became the focus. And that really hasn't stopped, especially we kind of called it the Care House Project, and we had the show in the town park called 9 Acts of Care. So that was an outdoor piece. And then this time around, I'm making a film called Harlow Cares. So with the people that have been participants in this lot of workshops, they're going to come and they have been invited to talk about little sound bites of care and maybe do some movement, or read some of the creative work that they've done in the workshops. And we're going to make a really lovely film with a really nice filmmaker called Adam from Big Eight Films. And we were in Harlow last Saturday at the Rainbow Services kind of day in the park, but it got washed out, rained out. But we actually managed to get some really lovely footage, especially from the people at the heart of providing care in Harlow, and they were talking about care on film, which is really great. And I'm doing some more filming this week on Thursday and Friday.
So this is an ever-evolving project now for you, isn't it?
Yes,
That,
so yeah,
yeah,
I
like
guess
you've found something that works, that has value, that has meaning, that's helping people and doing good,
yeah.
and now it's going in that direction. It sounds like it's kind of snowballing.
Yeah, hopefully, you know, I think that I really hope it grows, you know, because what I guess the infrastructure is growing in terms of who's part of the fabric of making it happen now, which is really exciting. And I guess hopefully the people that came as audiences to the one in the park 2 years ago will be revisiting us for this Care Weekender. And yeah, like I guess the bigger it gets, the more people that can take part, be part of the workshops, the more possibility of applying for funding from public health funds as well as arts funds. That becomes, you know, a priority then. And yeah, like because it had such an impact and added value to the people's lives that took part, you want everybody to experience that who feels they need that. And in particular, there are so many barriers to access art, you know, that is a shame, and also something that a lot of people are trying to do a lot of stuff about.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think there is a barrier to art? Do you think it's just an understanding of people not understanding the benefit that it can give to your life, or is there a deeper social issue going on?
Yeah, like a definite deeper social, financial issue going on. There's not enough funding for, you know, arts at the beginning stages of kind of the relationship you form with arts in education. A lot of the money has been pulled out of education, in particularly for the arts. But also, you know, there's a barrier in terms of class. So when I was growing up, going into big institutions was just something that wasn't really on my radar. These were buildings that I didn't really belong in, and I understand exactly what that feels like. even now, there are buildings that I go into
Mm-hmm.
knowing that my work's on the stage, but I don't always feel like I belong in that building.
Mm-hmm.
And if I feel like that, having done my
Yes.
whole career working in the arts, it's, it's just something that exists because of how you feel about yourself and what you deserve.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is rooted in social economic issues. And I think as well, like, inviting people into those buildings can happen in really meaningful ways and often doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So, you might put on shows that people are familiar with, kind of mainstream shows that people are familiar with. And sometimes the ticket pricing is too high, and so they can't access it for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of fantastic venues doing pay what you can schemes, including Harlow Playhouse. But it's also about giving that message so that people know that perhaps are people that wouldn't feel like they can spend the money that they have that week going to a theatre. So it's just not on their radar because each day they're trying to meet their basic needs
Mm-hmm.
and put food on the table. And so it's our responsibility, I say our kind of, the creative industry and the local council, our responsibility to make sure the invitations to art are reached by everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that means going to those people, not expecting them to come to you, but going to them and inviting them because you want to create a meaningful relationship, and because they have the right to it.
Yes,
Yeah.
and showing the doors are opening and you're welcomed into this space. That
Yeah.
this is a space for you. This is a space where you will be understood and you will be part of a community. And
Yes.
and it's vast, isn't it? From theatre, I have met such a wide variety of different people, and the the benefit that that has given to my life in the art and outside of the art is I can't even begin to measure what that's done for me. And I've got two teenagers now that enjoy the arts, and my daughter in particular, she's into her music, and
Oh, great.
my son does a bit. He does a bit of theatre, and their life, I can see is they have a fulfilled life, and I don't fear for their future as
Mm.
long as they always have that art attached to their life.
Yeah.
Like
It's
they can choose to
no.
do, yes, and they can choose to do whatever they want with their future. But like I say, with my daughter, she has music. I always know that's going to be there for her.
Yeah.
And if more of us can embrace that, I think society would be a much nicer place for all of us to live in.
Absolutely. And I guess what the issue is how do more of us embrace it, and
Mm.
how is it accessible, and what are the barriers? And when you identify some of those things, it's not just about identifying, it's like, okay, then what do we have to do? And
Mm.
it's often in the doing, because the doing costs money, where things, fall over and progress stops. But at the moment, there's a lot of momentum for change in that way, because if we want to diversify people on stage, and we want to diversify people in the creative process, um, and we want to diversify our audiences, we need to do more. Like, we need more money to do more.
Yes.
And of course, it comes down to money. And of course, there are things that, we need to tackle poverty, and we need to, there's a lot of things that need to happen.
Mm.
But I guess if you can see in front of you someone's light within them, you know, that it's appeared when it just, it wasn't there when you first met them. Like, there is a transformative part that art plays in people's lives.
And that will echo through society, won't it? That will echo into all of the other areas in which we may be struggling with. And we touched on COVID briefly. In that period of time, when people say to me, what is the value of art, I go back to that moment where, yes, it was important that we had the doctors and that we had that we had the people doing the important jobs to get us through day to day, the key workers. But how would the key workers have got through the things that they were doing without the arts, without the books to read, without the music, without the TV shows, without the theatre to come back to? How would we have got through it?
Yeah, it enriches us personally, and also it's like economically viable. Like, art brings a lot of money into the economy, and I think
last year it was 10.8 billion last year was a number, and so that's not a small amount. It's a huge contributor to the economy. So to not value it, to not put it there, not invest in art,
and the fact that it's been socially prescribed by doctors, like, this is good for your mental well-being, your mental health, like, the research is there. It is something that is just so valuable. It's unfathomable that it's not in every person's life, and that's by no fault of their own.
Tell me a little bit more about you. You touched on that you bring professionals into your space. You're bringing psychiatrists into the space.
So Choreographer is our psychologist. She comes into our space with lots of different, I guess, hats on. In that, if it's workshops, she'll come in to kind of hold that space in a safe way. She also, so in that space, she'll offer kind of lots of tools. She works from the human given psychology, which kind of is a kind of a needs audit. It's based on all of the needs that require us to, be leveled. and that's really useful because she plants those seeds during the kind of duration of the workshop. And they are able to take things home that they can look at too. But she also, then we have a care cafe after the workshop, which is where we all kind of just sit together and have some cake, but get to know each other. And if they want to have a chat with Joy one-to-one, then the participants can do that. And then she comes into our, I guess, space when I'm working professionally with the dancers. If I'm making a show. So at the moment, we're going to, I guess, premiere or try out our new show that we're working on at the Weekender, which is going to be a new outdoor show around the themes of care, called The Care We See. And so she would come in during the process of working with the performers, because similar in the workshops, they will be doing tasks that involve them, tapping into their experiences and their autobiographies. And so she's available for them to have one-on-ones with also. And then if it feels like a show needs it, so depending on what the theme of the show is or the places that the show takes people, she has often come to a theatre when we're touring and been in a space during the show, a separate space next to the auditorium, where she would be if anyone needed to leave the space for any reason and have some support. And we've done that a couple of times, depending on what the show is. So she's kind of there for the audience in order to signpost them to the services that they might need to. So yeah, it feels like a very important part of our organization.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess she also works within the organization. So if any members of the team in the company need some support, then she's also available for them too.
This is a really important thing that's changing in the theatre world. For a long time, there was this motto in theatre: the show must go on, and this
Mm,
attitude of we must produce
yeah.
the work and the art no matter what. And within that, there has been a lot of people that have struggled with their life. They've struggled with their craft,
Yeah.
um, and it this is I'm still learning. I'm still trying to get my head around this as well, because when you do a piece of theatre, you work towards something that happens at a certain time, certain date. People have booked tickets.
Mm-hmm.
When you do it professionally or amateur, either way, the show is going to happen at this
Mm-hmm.
time and space. But people have a life, don't they? And they have
Mm-hmm.
things that are going on right now, and they've had things that are going on in the past. But
Mm-hmm.
previously, we haven't looked after them on that journey towards the show. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
now, more and more theatre companies are taking that care along the journey.
Yeah.
Do you think it has any detriment to the art? Do you think it offers any negative side effects by showing care towards your crew and your cast and your audience?
Absolutely not. I think I think it's the opposite, that if you are working with extremely gifted, creative people, that the way to get the most out of their gifts is to treat them as well as you possibly can, and for them to feel safe and in a space that propels their gifts. And security is a big part of that. If we feel secure in ourselves and
Mm.
our environment, then we don't have to even think about that. So we can be thinking about the art itself. So I laugh so hard, but no, I think that to me it's a no-brainer
Mm.
that if you hold spaces that are considered, and they're considered because you want to get the most out of the people in those spaces. Um, like our company have recently written a care policy which lives within our rehearsal spaces, but also organisationally and also within our community work. And maybe that might sound a weird thing to do, but actually, when we were talking about policies, it felt like the leading thing to do, because the way we want to, the focus of the way we choose to work is with consideration, contemplation, and care, and compassion. And compassion is a big part of that,
Mm-hmm.
because that makes everybody feel happy, or however they can feel in those spaces. But
Yes.
you provide the permission that saying the word care is okay. And when we arrive in a space, we always have a check-in and we have a check-out. So we check in with how everyone's doing, and then at the end of the day we check out, because like you said, outside of the space there's stuff that exists, and there's no point pretending it doesn't. Because why, like,
Mm.
there's no point. Like, know how everyone is. Where are they starting the day? Are they going to need some extra attention? Are they going to need some time by themselves where they can be working productively? But like, what serves that person to get the best out of them?
Mm-hmm.
It's That seems very sensible to me.
Yes, it
And
is.
it may make processes longer.
Mm-hmm.
Like on a Friday, I have to say, okay, we're going to stop working now because our counsellor's coming in to do a session with us. And that's often what happens. And I have to go, that's the best thing to do, because when we arrive here back on Monday, we're going to be in the right place we need to. And I understand that financially that might be difficult for companies, but it's still doable.
Hmm.
You just have to sacrifice something else that isn't as important.
I almost find it strange that it's taken theatre so long to get to this space when theatre is a place of compassion and a place of empathy where we're working on imagine creative and imaginative scenarios where we're considering faults and feelings, and yet it's taken so long for us to do that for the people that are involved in the
Yeah,
craft.
yeah, and it's been a damaging process in
Mm-hmm.
in lots of ways. And I've been part of that. I've done stuff in my past that I probably shouldn't have done. And I guess when you are then responsible for other people because it's your company, then that really matters. And it might not be everybody's journey that this is important, but it's definitely ours, the Rhiannon Faith Company. Yeah, and
And that's
I
wonderful.
imagine you've been in. If you're, have I frozen?
For a second, he froze for a second. We're back.
I was just saying, I imagine you've been in some of those spaces as an actor
Mm-hmm.
where it hasn't felt, a very enjoyable experience.
Yes, I
Um,
have. Yeah, there have been a number of times where I've wanted to walk away from things. Um,
yeah,
I think the film industry is a bit behind with this. I think with the film industry, I think people dip in and out very quickly, whereas with theatre, you come together for a longer, more intense period of time. Whereas with the film industry, you might dip in and out as, say, an actor or performer for a day or two here and there, and so it's harder to give that care in the film industry. But I'm thinking back right now to a time when I was a director and I had someone that was struggling with their mental health. And the only way at that time that I knew how to deal with them was to say to them, I don't think theatre's for you. Which now I look back on that and I think that was probably the worst bit of advice I can give them, was to say to them, I think you should step away. But from a director's perspective, all I could see was I've got to make this show happen in 3 weeks' time. And right now you're holding that process up. And we how can we deal with this when the show happens? How can we put this show on pause? This is my business. This is my income. This is I want to pay you to do a job. And if you can't do that job because of your outside problems, then maybe you need to reconsider if this is correct in your life. Now I'm still not sure if I dealt. Yeah, like I say, I feel maybe I gave the wrong advice. I feel I would definitely deal with that situation different now. But what
yeah,
advice would you give to, say, a director that is struggling with a person that they have issues going on and they're struggling with their mental health, but the show has to happen?
yeah. Um, it's difficult, and I just, as much as you can, lead with compassion and support that person, because it might be that the show has to change, and it might be that they can't be part of the end product, but product is really, not the most. I know people want results, and that feels very important, but actually the bigger picture is there's a person that's struggling and needs support. And I think that should take priority.
Mm.
And I know that uh, for show, I mean, I can say I've had experiences of that, and I guess I've been fortunate enough to either um, you know be able to support that person working with a counselor and get them to where they need to be part of the work, which is always, you know, the hope. But there have been times where we've had to stop a show from going on another tour because it wasn't the right thing to do.
There's always, no matter what we're doing, there's always right and wrong, isn't there? No
Yeah.
matter what we're doing, whether it's a business or we're doing just a passion project, there is always what's right and what's wrong.
I think if you can, from the get-go, put as much in place to make that process not only feel valuable creatively, because I think sometimes perhaps there is the thought that, you know, if we don't have as much time because we're doing this other stuff that, you know, is about well-being. You know, if we don't have that time, you know, the show's not going to be as good. Like, that's never the case. The show, if you're a good artist or a good director, you're going to make a great piece of work. You have the skills to do it and for it to be where it needs to be. And I think that it's just about priorities from the get-go. So at the very beginning of a process, what do I need? Kind of like along the way, I learned, well, at the very beginning of the process, I need a dramaturg. I don't need the dramaturg 2 nights before the show. You know, I need the dramaturg from the very beginning who understands where we're going on our journey. And if I deviate, I need to be pulled back because they were there from the get-go. And they know they understand the work as much as I understand the work. And I think it's about prioritizing at the same time everybody's well-being. So if I'm giving a dramaturg to my work to look after the well-being of the art, I need to give a psychologist to the space to look after the well-being of everybody involved. And like I said, I've had to maybe work with one less performer in order to pay for, you know, that provision. But that ultimately is more important.
I guess this whole creative process is an ongoing evolution and
Yeah, you make
building and
mistakes,
understand. You make
kind of learn along the way.
you
Yeah.
you learn along the way, and it isn't just about the end product and the craft itself. It is so important to do this with the community and to consider how that is a part of it and what you want that to look like and what kind of experience you want that to be.
Yeah, and to trust that it's like it's bigger than you. Like, you can go in with an idea, but everybody that you meet along the way is going to impact the piece of work in some way, and to just kind of be very open to that. So I guess it's about relinquishing ego and, you know, not needing to have the final say sometimes, and to kind of just invite that openness and collaboration or co-creation. It's only going to enhance the work and make you better.
Yeah. I'm conscious of time, so I've got a few final questions because I know you want it. We've got about an hour here, so a couple of questions about the Rhiannon Faith Company. I know that is it you personally or the company recently got nominated for quite a big award, an Olivier Award.
Oh, an Olivia Award, yeah.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah, that happened. So we made a piece. The company made a piece called "Lay Down Your Burdens," and while that was on at the Barbican in London, yeah, I think we had a panel come in and look at the work, and then we had a nomination for outstanding achievement in dance, and it was kind of a, you know, out of the blue moment. The company, it's me as artistic director. I have Maddie Morgan, who's executive director, and Anna Dominion, who works as a producer on our shows. And we got to go to a very unexpected Royal Albert Hall and put a nice frock on, and there were lots of famous people there. And it's a different type of work. A different type of world, because, you know, we work in kind of contemporary dance theatre. And I guess that's becoming a bit more familiar to people. So there were some other companies that we knew kind of from our side of the the art world that had been nominated, but the majority of people there were musical theatre or actors.
Yes.
So it was a little bit different. We saw Nicole Scherzinger. She's in Sunset Boulevard. So really, we were just on a day out, kind of like star spotting.
Wow. So how
And
did
then
that feel to get recognised for your work like that?
um, it was really great. It was a bit of a big deal. I
Yeah.
kind of when I saw it on my phone. I only found out on my phone it was on Twitter, and I kind of dropped my phone away from me, like as if I was like, "Oh my gosh, is that real?" And then I kind of creeped back up to it and had a look, and I couldn't quite believe it. It was really exciting because I make very weird experimental dance theatre that comes out of my head.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and with the brilliant creative teams that help, form it and bring it to life, we create something that feels very special and important. That show in particular has participation in it. So we invite the audience to do something quite tough. We ask them to talk about the things that they find heavy in their lives. Um, and we talk about, the things that are beautiful in our lives. But it's some of the shows are like that because they need to be like that so that we, are talking about the stuff we need to be talking about. But to think that that then becomes on the same kind of stage as something that has been along forever, like Sunset Boulevard, and has the history, and it's just one of those things that you don't quite imagine will ever happen.
Hmm.
I tell you, when I did the green carpet, I bloody loved it. I didn't think I would. I wasn't sure because I've never been in front of like that amount of cameras and press and stuff. But it was really fun. It was a good gig.
No, it's a good. It's special. It's an important moment for you. It's
Yeah,
you've clearly been working and building towards something, and you've been recognised for that, and that's nice. And you should celebrate and be proud of yourself for it.
thank you. Yeah, really proud of that work. We're going to tour that next year, so it still needs a little bit of you
Tweaking and playing.
know. I'm doing that. I realise we're on a podcast, but yeah, a bit of summit. But it's a really special show, and we're we're excited to take it on tour. Yeah.
Wonderful. So as we wrap this up, I'd like to just last of all think about the future. What are your hopes and dreams moving forward?
Uh, that's a big question.
It is.
I guess my hopes and dreams are us to really build our community in Harlow. Everybody should know how amazing the Playhouse is and feel like that venue belongs to them. And with the cultural quarter and the regeneration project in Harlow happening, I really hope that we find a way as it's being, built and curated, that everybody in Harlow feels like it belongs to them. And so I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done to feel like
Mm-hmm.
this is a building that is theirs, that they trust and they want to be a part of, and they become a part of that. So I'm really interested in that. I think in terms of shows, we want to move onto the main stages of venues, and so we're kind of working up to that kind of creatively and organizationally what our infrastructure is, and we're not quite there yet, but that is, I always kind of imagine my projects much bigger,
Mm-hmm.
and often to do with budget and whatever, um, we have to bring it in somehow. So I am excited one day to see what could happen if it could be how I saw it in my head from the
I guess
get-go.
with our imagination, it's good to not put restraints on it, to go to a place of vastness and not put those financial barriers in the way. and start at a place of, yes, this is what I envision, this is how I see this being, and then work all out the smaller details from there, and rein in the vision where it needs to.
Exactly. And what I would love to see happening at the same time as us, as a company taking work to those main stages, is that our Harlow audience come with us and see pieces of work like that on the main stage of a venue that they might not have gone in, 6 years ago before they met the company, and their first steps into the Playhouse. So that's what I'm hoping.
Wonderful. This has been really nice. It's really nice to meet you.
Thank you, Mark.
I love the message of you and your company. I think you're doing wonderful work. I really look forward to following you in the future, to seeing how your future pans out, and the creative vision that I'm sure it's all coming to pass.
Oh, thanks so much, Martin. It's really, really nice to meet you. And if you can, come to the Weekender.
I will do my best to come along. I look forward to seeing it. And just to wrap this up, if anyone has been watching or listening to this conversation, we appreciate you for joining us. And if anyone wants to find out more about you and your company, Rhiannon, where do we find out more about you?
Well, I guess on all the socials, Rhiannon Faith Company, the website, I think, is www.rhiannonfaith.com, I think.
I tell you what, we'll put it in all the comments below. We'll link everything in the comments. So.
Yeah, or at the Playhouse. If you Google Harlow Playhouse or the company, then you'll see the events that we have. But the next event, and the big one that I really love everyone to come to and turn out for in Harlow, is the Care Weekender, and that's on the 2nd to the 4th of August. This August. It's not going to rain. It's going to be lovely sunny weather, and we're all going to celebrate care and how amazing Harlow is, and how amazing all the people in Harlow.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ta-ra.